through accident and design. Spielberg couldn't have timed the post better, writes Shilpa Jinatrattan months ago, when the script first landed on his desk. Donald Trump had just begun his attacks on news broadcaster CNN, declaring them fake news. Now, in the week of the film's release, the US president is due to deliver the Fake News Awards, those going to the most corrupt. Challenging times indeed. With the freedom of the press at the forefront of our minds, cinema will serve as a much-needed reminder of that the role of the press was to serve the governed, not the governors, as the U.S. Supreme Court put it in 1971. The critical message is perhaps why Spielberg was able to attract Hollywood's top names at short notice. Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks take top billing, formulating Hollywood's trinity who have miraculously never worked on a film together in their lengthy careers. The day after the Post's European premiere, Meryl and Tom are entertaining journalists in a five-star hotel with their expected charm. Both are at perfect ease with each other, a chemistry that forms the backbone of the movie, in which Streep plays Katharine Graham, publisher of The Washington Post, and Hanks plays Ben Bradley, its larger-than-life editor. Together, they faced the decision on whether to report on the Pentagon Papers. If they did, they'd be faced with a potential prison sentence for breaching an injunction placed by the Nixon administration, and a court battle that would have shut down the paper if they lost. If they didn't, it would have spoken volumes about the value of business concerns and government scaremongering over the remit as a democratic pillar. What were the Pentagon Papers? The Pentagon Papers was the name given to the U.S. Department of Defense's secret document that detailed the political and military involvement in Vietnam from 1945 to 1967. The 7,000-page study, given the ordinary title, History of U.S. Decision-making in Vietnam, 1945 to 66, concluded that the war in Vietnam could not be won, a belief that had been kept from the public despite the continued loss of lives. It also revealed the true extent of military expansion to include the bombing of Cambodia and Laos, and that Congress had repeatedly been misled by the administrations of Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy and Johnson. Only 15 copies of the document were made, which were accessed by Daniel Ellsberg, a military analyst for the Rand Corporation, a foreign policy think tank. Believing the public had a right to know about the facts of the war, he leaked the document to Neil Sheehan in the New York Times in March 1971, who began the chain of events played out in the Post. Freedom of press comes down to the practitioners within that estate, begins Hanks. Before adopting the spirited accent we hear in movie, Ben Bradley would say things like, "Well, you got a story, but you don't have the story, come back to me when you've got the story." Meaning he wanted to aim at confirmable, almost empirical, truth. Because you cannot suffer by going out and printing the truth. That code of ethics, that discipline and desire in itself, comes down to an individual mandate that only the practitioners themselves can give. The movie also captures another pertinent social issue. The buck stopped with publisher Katharine Graham, despite women being otherwise absent from the newspaper industry at the time. What was interesting about the screenplay is that it fell to a woman to hold the line for press freedom, at a time when women were